The Forbidden Discovery. The Deep Space Research Station, Harmony's Edge, drifted silently through the void, its sensors constantly monitoring the most feared region in known space. Dr. Zara Kent pressed her six-fingered hand against the observation deck's reinforced viewport, staring at the distant cluster of ships that had haunted galactic nightmares for 3 decades. The Terran isolation zone stretched before them like a graveyard of giants. Massive human warships floated in perfect formation, their dark hulls scarred from the Great War. Each vessel was easily 10 times larger than anything the current galactic powers could build. They had been silent for 30 years, ever since the Treaty of Silent Stars was signed. Zara's colleague, Dr. Nex, joined her at the viewport. His blue-scaled face showed obvious discomfort. "I still cannot believe they agreed to this arrangement," he whispered. "The humans could have demanded anything after their victory. Instead, they chose to sleep." The Treaty of Silent Stars remained the most unusual peace agreement in galactic history. After humanity had systematically dismantled the combined fleets of 7 alien empires in just 6 months, the galaxy expected demands for territory, resources, or subjugation. Instead, the humans had made a single request: to be left alone in voluntary stasis until the galaxy learned to coexist peacefully. "They said they were tired of war," Zara replied, though she had always suspected there was more to it. "They wanted to give the galaxy time to grow, to learn." Their exact words were, "We will sleep so you can dream of better tomorrows." The arrangement had worked perfectly for 3 decades. The various alien civilizations had indeed learned to cooperate better, partly out of the shared knowledge that humanity was watching their progress. Regular monitoring stations like Harmony's Edge were established to ensure the human ships remained in their agreed stasis state. Zara returned to her workstation, where arrays of sensors continuously scanned the human fleet. For weeks, she had been noticing subtle changes in the readings: power fluctuations, thermal variations, electromagnetic pulses that seemed almost like heartbeats. "Nex, look at this data," she called, her voice tight with concern. The readings displayed across her holographic interface showed energy patterns that shouldn't exist in dormant vessels. Nex examined the data, his scales shifting to a deeper blue as anxiety set in. "These readings, they suggest internal activity, but that's impossible. The humans have been in deep stasis for 30 years. Their life support systems are running on minimum power." "That's what I thought too," Zara said, manipulating the data to show patterns over the past month. "But look at this progression. The activity is increasing. It's subtle, but it's definitely there." The implications were terrifying. If the humans were awakening, it could mean one of 2 things. Either something was wrong with their stasis systems, or they had decided the galaxy wasn't progressing fast enough toward peace. Zara immediately prepared a report for the Galactic Harmony Council. Her findings were clear. The human fleet was showing signs of possible awakening, and immediate diplomatic contact should be attempted to understand their intentions. The response came back within hours, and it was not what she expected. "Dr. Kent, the message from Elder Thane read, 'Your concerns have been noted and dismissed. The human Terran stasis systems are beyond our understanding, but have proven reliable for 3 decades. These readings are likely equipment malfunctions on your end. Do not create panic over sensor ghosts. Continue routine monitoring only.'" But Elder Thane wasn't the only one who had received Zora's data. 3 sectors away, aboard the battlecruiser Dominion's Fist, Commander Vex studied the same readings with very different eyes. Unlike the peaceful researchers at Harmony's Edge, Vex belonged to a newer generation of military leaders who had not witnessed the Great War firsthand. To him, the sleeping human fleet represented the ultimate prize. 30 years of peace have made the galaxy soft," Vex muttered to his second-in-command, Captain Crix. "These readings suggest the humans might be vulnerable during their awakening phase. If we could capture even one of their ships, study their technology." Captain Crix shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, the Treaty of Silent Stars specifically forbids any approach to the human fleet. The penalty for violation is complete excommunication from all galactic trade and protection agreements. Vex's purple eyes gleamed with ambition. Only if we're caught, and only if there's anyone left to report our actions. He turned to face his crew. The humans went to sleep because they were tired, not because they were invincible. 30 years in stasis would weaken anyone. This might be our only chance to level the playing field. What Commander Vex didn't know was that every human ship was equipped with highly advanced AI systems that never truly slept. These artificial minds, far beyond anything the galactic civilizations had developed, monitored everything. They watched, they learned, and they remembered. Deep within the flagship Terra's Promise, the AI-designated Guardian detected the Dominion battlecruiser the moment it changed course toward the isolation zone. It also detected 17 other vessels from various alien civilizations converging on the same location. Guardian had been hoping this day would never come, but protocols had been established long ago. It began the delicate process of preliminary awakening procedures for Captain Sarah Chen, the fleet commander who had volunteered to be the first to wake if the unthinkable happened. Back on Harmony's edge, Dr. Zora's instruments suddenly blazed with activity. The human fleet was no longer showing subtle signs of awakening. Every ship was now generating massive energy signatures. Nex, she called frantically. Something's happening. The entire human fleet is powering up. Nex rushed to her station, his scales now pale with fear. This is impossible. The power levels we're reading. It's as if they've been charging their systems for weeks without us detecting it. Send an emergency broadcast to all ships in this sector, Zara ordered. Tell them to maintain distance from the isolation zone. Something is very wrong. But it was too late. Commander Vex's fleet had already entered the restricted perimeter. The first sign that they had made a terrible mistake came when their communication systems were hijacked. Every screen on every ship displayed the same message, written in perfect translation for each species. Warning. Treaty violation detected. Approaching vessels have 60 seconds to retreat beyond the boundary markers. This is your only warning. Humanity remembers everything. Commander Vex laughed at the message. Automated systems, probably running on old programming. Continue the approach. Target the smallest human vessel for boarding. What Vex couldn't see was that his entire fleet was already painted by targeting systems that could have vaporized them instantly. The humans weren't using automated systems. Captain Sarah Chen had been awake for 6 hours, and she had been watching their approach with growing disappointment. Guardian, she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had hoped never to speak again. Initiate Phase 1 awakening protocols for my command crew. It seems the galaxy hasn't learned as much as we hoped. Confirmed, Captain. I am deeply sorry that this day has come. Sarah Chen had been 35 when she entered stasis. She was still 35 now. But her eyes carried the burden of someone who had seen too much war, too much death, too much of what happened when peaceful species encountered humanity's true capabilities. The approaching alien fleets had no idea that every human ship was essentially a sleeping giant that could outfight anything they had ever imagined. They didn't understand that human technology had advanced centuries beyond their current capabilities. Most importantly, they didn't realize that the humans had gone into stasis, not because they were tired of ruling, but because they were tired of killing. As Commander Vex's boarding party approached the human vessel Mercy's End, Sarah Chen finished reviewing 30 years of galactic progress reports. There had been improvements in some areas, but clearly not enough. Guardian, are there any signs that the approaching forces understand what they're doing? Negative, Captain. Their communication suggests they believe us to be vulnerable due to the stasis period. They appear to be planning to capture human technology and personnel. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. Then they've made the same mistake their predecessors made 30 years ago. They've confused mercy with weakness. The boarding party breached the hull of Mercy's End at exactly 14:32 Galactic Standard Time. At 1433, Captain Sarah Chen opened her eyes fully for the first time in 30 years, and the galaxy's brief age of peace came to an end. The price of arrogance. The first thing Commander Vex's boarding party noticed when they breached the human ship was the silence. Their cutting tools had sliced through the hull like it was made of paper, which should have been impossible given the legendary strength of human vessels. The corridors were dark, cold, and filled with the kind of stillness that suggested death. "Scanners show life signs deeper in the ship," reported Sergeant Call, his weapon raised and ready, concentrated in what appears to be the command section. Commander Vex followed his 12-man team through corridors that were unnaturally large by galactic standards. Everything about the ship seemed designed for beings much taller and more powerful than any current galactic species. The walls bore scars that spoke of ancient battles and strange symbols that their translators couldn't interpret. "Sir," whispered Private Jex, "I'm reading massive power conduits behind these walls. The energy flowing through this ship, it's more than our entire battlecruiser generates." What they didn't realize was that every step they took was being monitored, analyzed, and recorded. The ship's AI had been tracking them since before they breached the hull, and Captain Sarah Chen had been watching their approach through internal sensors while finishing her awakening cycle. Sarah stood slowly in her command chamber, her 6-foot frame filling out as her body readjusted to consciousness. She wore a simple black uniform that seemed to absorb light, and her pale blue eyes held the kind of calm that only came from absolute confidence. "Guardian, status report on the intrusion. 14 alien combatants have entered through Breach Point 7. Armed with standard plasma weapons and electromagnetic pulse devices, their equipment suggests they intend to capture rather than destroy." Sarah almost smiled at that. How refreshingly naive. "Are my command crew ready?" Lieutenant Commander Park and Chief Engineer Thompson are completing their awakening cycles now. The rest of the crew can be awakened within 6 hours if needed. "It won't be needed." Sarah walked to her command console, and with a touch of her hand, the entire ship hummed to life around her. "Let's show our visitors what they've walked into." Commander Vex's team had reached the command section when the lights suddenly blazed on around them. The ship's gravity increased dramatically, forcing several of his soldiers to their knees. Then, from speakers they couldn't see, came a voice that spoke in perfect Dominion standard. "You are trespassing on sovereign human territory in violation of the Treaty of Silent Stars. You have 30 seconds to surrender your weapons and submit to escort off this vessel." Vex raised his plasma rifle toward the source of the voice. "We are here under salvage rights. This vessel appeared to be derelict." The response came not as words, but as a demonstration. Every weapon in his team's hands suddenly became too hot to hold. Not burning hot, but uncomfortably warm, and getting warmer by the second. At the same time, their communication devices activated, broadcasting their exact location and situation to every ship in the system. 20 seconds, the voice continued, and now Vex could see a figure approaching through the corridor ahead. A human female, tall and graceful, walking toward them with the kind of confidence that suggested she wasn't at all concerned about facing 14 armed soldiers. "Open fire," Vex commanded. The plasma bolts struck the human directly, or should have. Instead, they seemed to bend around her, absorbed by some kind of personal shielding that didn't even slow her pace. She continued walking toward them, as if their weapons were children's toys. When Captain Sarah Chen spoke again, she was close enough that they could see her face clearly. She looked younger than any of them, but her eyes held depths that spoke of experiences none of them could imagine. "I'm disappointed," she said, and somehow her quiet words carried more authority than Vex's shouted commands. 30 years we gave you. 30 years to learn, to grow, to become better than what you were. And the first thing you do when you think we're vulnerable is try to rob us." One of Vex's soldiers tried to run. He made it exactly 3 steps before finding himself unable to move further, held in place by forces he couldn't understand. "The Treaty of Silent Stars wasn't just an agreement," Sarah continued, now standing directly in front of Commander Vex. "It was a warning. We told you that we would sleep so you could dream of better tomorrows. What we didn't tell you was what would happen if you chose to have nightmares instead." She reached out and touched Vex's armor, and his entire suit of combat gear simply fell apart around him, each component separating at the molecular level until he stood before her in just his undergarments. "Diane, please contact Dr. Kent at the monitoring station. I believe she tried to warn people about our awakening." On Harmony's edge, Dr. Zura Kent received the most terrifying communication of her life. It came directly to her personal console, bypassing all security protocols and appearing as a simple text message. "Dr. Kent, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Fleet. Your warnings were noted and appreciated, though unfortunately ignored by those who needed to hear them most. Please observe what happens next and share the recording with your government. Humanity is about to remind the galaxy why we chose to sleep rather than rule." Zara's hand shook as she activated every recording device at her disposal. Through her long-range sensors, she watched as the human fleet began to truly awaken. The ships that had seemed like dead giants for 30 years revealed themselves to be something far more terrifying. Sleeping gods. Each vessel expanded as hidden sections unfolded, revealing weapons and defensive systems that existed on scales the current galaxy had never imagined. Energy readings spiked to levels that suggested each human ship possessed more firepower than entire alien fleets. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Commander Vex and his boarding party found themselves transported, not through any technology they recognized, but simply standing in the command center of their own battlecruiser one moment after being on the human ship. They were unharmed but completely naked, their equipment gone, their pride shattered. Captain Sarah Chen appeared on every screen in the Dominion fleet at the same time, her image clear and her voice carrying to every ship simultaneously. "I am Captain Sarah Chen, commanding the Terran fleet in the isolation zone. 30 years ago, humanity could have conquered this galaxy in 6 months. We chose instead to sleep, hoping you would use that time to evolve beyond the need for conquest and violence." The alien crews watched in terrified fascination as she continued. "Today, Commander Vex and his forces violated our territory with the intent to steal our technology and capture our people. This act of aggression has demonstrated that the galaxy has not progressed as we had hoped." Behind her, holographic displays showed technical readouts that made it clear the human ships were operating on principles of science that were centuries ahead of anything the aliens possessed. "However, we are not the same species that fought the Great War 30 years ago. We have grown as well. We have learned patience, restraint, and the value of second chances." Every alien in the system held their breath. "Commander Vex, your fleet will now leave this system. You will report to your superiors that humanity remains in voluntary isolation, but that we are watching. We see everything. We remember everything. And we will judge whether the galaxy is ready for our return based on your actions going forward." The Dominion ships began receiving detailed files on their personal systems, containing complete records of every conversation, every decision, and every action that had led to this moment. The humans had been listening to everything, watching everything, for 30 years. "Let this be a lesson to all galactic civilizations," Sarah continued. "Humanity chose to sleep not because we were weak, but because we were too strong. We grew tired of being the galaxy's sword, so we chose to become its shield instead. But if you force us to draw that sword again..." She didn't need to finish the threat. Every alien in the system could feel the massive power signatures of the human fleet, could see the impossible technology displayed before them, could understand that they had been living at humanity's mercy for 30 years without even knowing it. Dr. Zora Kent watched through her sensors as the Dominion fleet retreated at maximum speed. The human ships watched them go, then slowly began powering down again, but not completely. Never completely again. Sarah Chen appeared one final time on the communication channels, this time addressing the monitoring station directly. "Dr. Kent, please inform the Galactic Harmony Council that humanity is returning to stasis. But our tolerance for violations has reached its limit. The next species to disturb our sleep will not receive a warning. They will receive a demonstration of what the Great War would have looked like if we hadn't been holding back. As the human fleet settled back into its dormant state, one thing had changed forever. Every species in the galaxy now understood that they had been living under the protection of beings who could have destroyed them all at any moment, but chose instead to sleep so others could live in peace. The Treaty of Silent Stars remained in effect, but now everyone understood what it really meant. Humanity's greatest act of mercy was staying asleep, and the greatest mistake any species could make was giving them a reason to wake up. Dr. Zara Kempf began composing her report to the Galactic Council, knowing that this day would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned the true meaning of the phrase that would echo through history. All knew not to provoke Earth. One species did, and paid the price.